Waiver wire, best options for you in week 15. And how about a little week 16 as well right now on Fantasy Football Today Express? All right, it's Adam and Dave. And we're talking waiver wire. Dave, who are the top priorities?
My top priorities are Patrick Taylor of the 49ers, Adam Thielen, wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, and Hunter Henry, stud tight end of the New England Patriots, who you might have cut during the bye of week 14. He's going to be back in week 15. Only Taylor is widely available. Thielen available in about half of CBS leagues. Hunter Henry a little more than a third, but Patrick Taylor was an afterthought. And with Isaac Guerrero having a sprained foot, apparently not practicing this week, probably not going to play on Thursday, Taylor lines up to be the main running back for the 49ers against the Rams on a short week. Fresh legs, average talent, but huge opportunity. And that makes me gravitate toward him in fantasy.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've got your initial rankings up. Would you start Tyrone Tracy Jr. against the Ravens or Patrick Taylor?
I do have initial rankings, and I believe I do have Tracy a couple of spots ahead of Patrick Taylor.
Okay. Trying to think of are there any other like struggling running backs that?
Well, what do you think about Najee against Philadelphia?
That's a great one.
So in
I'd go with
PPR, I'll take Harris over Taylor, but in non-PPR, I currently have Taylor one notch ahead of Najee.
Okay. I mean, the Eagles' run defense really isn't that good, honestly. But how about Ramondre Stevenson at Arizona or Patrick Taylor?
I've got Ramondre one spot ahead of Patrick Taylor.
How about Patrick Taylor or Adam Thielen in a flex?
So Jamie brought this up on our show, and it kind of registered with me. If you've got one flex spot open and it's full PPR, I think Thielen is the safer guy to go with there. So yes, Thielen over Taylor if you need somebody for a flex spot. Obviously Thielen over Taylor if you need a wide receiver. But this is the time of year where I love to cram as many lottery ticket running backs as I can onto my bench. I will drop the wide receivers that I'm not starting, and they might be boom bust types. They might be borderline wide receiver threes. They're gone. Give me the running backs that have potential to become what Patrick Taylor has become, which is the main running back for an NFL team. In this case, one of the best rushing teams in the league in a favorable matchup on a short week.
How do they cram all that? You said cram, and I just started thinking about cereal, Dave. So I'm hungry. Show's over. Thank you. This has been a very brief. All right. Quarterbacks. Who are the best quarterbacks to get this week?
So you're going to find Anthony Richardson, and you're going to see Jameis Winston on your waiver wire. Winston more so than Richardson. I like them both as like fringe QB1s this week, but I think Winston probably has the nod against Kansas City. Should be a game where he has a lot of passing volume. But, and this is a huge but, if you have a bye in week 15, or if you don't have a bye in week 15, but you plan on playing into week 16, I think Richardson might be a guy that you'd gravitate toward. So either of those guys are good options. Winston is a good matchup in week 16 as well. There's a drop off after that. It's Aaron Rodgers. We talked about his injuries on the main show, but he would be the third best quarterback to pick up. And then after that, it's kind of gross. It's Will Levis. It's Cooper Rush. Bryce Young. Drake May. I told you it was gross, Adam. So hopefully you get your hands on one of Winston or Richardson. And if you can't, Aaron Rodgers is third best.
All right. If you don't have the top priority and someone gets Patrick Taylor, who are the other running backs to pivot to?
There's a lot of them. Tank Bigsby is 36% available. Jamie and I had a nice debate on the main show about which one is better between Bigsby and Taylor. When it comes to talent, no question, it's Bigsby. But the opportunities, I think, will favor Taylor this week. So I will take Taylor for this week. If you have a bye, I might take Bigsby over Taylor just to have him for week 16. It's a good matchup for him. After Bigsby, it's Sincere McCormick. It's Isaiah Davis. Kamani Vidal makes sense as somebody that you could grab and potentially stash. Jeremy McNichols is a stash candidate. Kendre Miller is a stash candidate in New Orleans, and he's available in 90% of leagues. As we go on with this stash list, you're going to be less and less interested in these running backs. But again, these are the types of players that I like to put on my bench in the fantasy playoffs.
We'll take a break on FFT Express and talk about wide receivers to target when we come back. Okay, Dave, who are the top wide receivers to get? And we got to include Christian Watson. who is 63% rostered. So give me your top receivers.
Thielen's going to be number one. Watson, 37% available. Like you said, yeah, he would be number two. And Josh Palmer, we don't know if Vlad McConkey is going to be ready to go for the Chargers in week 15. If he's not, it looked like Josh Palmer was the man replacing him in the offense. Had a bunch of over routes, crossing routes, in breaking routes, certainly worked downfield against Kansas City. Now he's got Tampa. That's a great matchup for him. I would put him third, if not maybe second on that list, because I think things could change for Christian Watson if Romeo Doubs is cleared from the concussion protocol and Doubs plays against Seattle. And that Seattle defense has been getting a little bit better against wide receivers. So it's a close call there, but Watson long term is safer than Palmer, because Palmer, as soon as Ladd McConkey comes back, it's curtains for Joshy.
Just imagine if he had caught that ball, 82-yard touchdown. Could have won the game. Justin Herbert just missed Josh Palmer streaking down the field. Top tight ends to get.
Well, let me just mention a couple of other wide receivers before we get to the tight ends. Roma Dunze is he's out there in the same amount of leagues as Christian Watson, but he had a 2-touchdown game. Maybe this is the start of something for Dunze in that Bears offense. Jalen McMillan, we didn't really talk much about him on the main show. 79% available. He's a speed option guy for Tampa Bay and someone who can pick up a lot of yards off of screens and slants, short area, and occasionally some big plays. Keon Coleman, he's in that same range as Watson and Rome Odunze, and I don't mind stashing him. Last time we saw him, when he was healthy in Buffalo, he was putting up some good numbers for the Buffalo Bills. I just don't know if he'll be to that same level after what we saw from Amari Cooper this week, but it's somebody who does have some lottery ticket potential at wide receiver. You asked me about the tight ends. Hunter Henry's at the top of the list, 39% available. Jake Ferguson, 41% available. Those would be the top two. And then I reorganized my list a little bit. I put Dalton Schultz third because of the matchups that he has this week and next week for the Texans, and he's available in 61% of leagues. And we know that Will Dissly is going to be on the shelf for a while. Stone Smart got in as the number one tight end for the Chargers last week. If he is able to keep that job, maybe you stream him. He's 99% available. I think I'd rather take the chance on Stone Smart catching passes from Justin Herbert than Jawan Johnson catching passes from Jake Haener / Spencer Rattler for the New Orleans Saints. But Jawan is behind Stone Smart, and he's 70% available.
All right, we got to get the DSTs in there, and if the Ravens are available, they'd be the best one to pick up for sure. Who else, Dave, should we be looking at?
If you can get the Ravens, you can also get the Falcons, and you could carry them both, and voila, you've got matchups against the New York Giants each of the next 2 weeks. Keep that in mind. If you can get the Ravens, 33% available. Commanders are a good second option if the Ravens are already rostered in your league. They take on New Orleans with that muddled quarterback situation, and really their passing game hasn't been that good, even with Derek Carr. Jets against Jacksonville, I don't love it, but it's an option. Double check to see if you can get the Cardinals or the Broncos DSTs. They're widely rostered already, but maybe one of them is on the waiver wire.
I mean, the Cardinals are 69% rostered, so that they should be part of this check to see if they're available discussion.
Right. I'd rather have the Commanders than the Cardinals, but they do. The Cardinals play the Patriots this week. Should be a matchup that's favorable. Carolina after that. Rams in week 17. So next 2 weeks, Arizona, you might be able to get something out of their defense.
That's Dave Richard. Oh, sorry. Week 16. I had some names for week 16. Well, first of all, I mentioned this on the main show, but the top two quarterbacks on the waiver wire, Anthony Richardson and Jameis Winston, they both have good matchups in week 16 with Richardson getting Tennessee and Jameis. I mean, I love Jameis at Cincinnati. You know, the Bengals are going to score points. So week 16, oh man, I hope I can make it to week 16 so I can start Jameis Winston. Caleb Williams gets Detroit in week 16 and Minnesota this week. Aiden O'Connell, if he's playing, gets Jacksonville. Sincere McCormick has good matchups coming up. Dalton Schultz has good matchups coming up, including Miami this week, Kansas City next week. Jake Ferguson has good matchups coming up. And Arizona, they get two good matchups. They have New England and then at Carolina. Next week, the Rams are at the Jets. Dave already mentioned picking up the Falcons to get the Giants in week 16. And the Packers. Packers are a decent ad. They're playing okay. Seattle this week, and then New Orleans. You really want to target the Giants and the Saints as much as you can. I don't even know if the Cardinals are that great of a matchup anymore. I'm sorry, the Panthers are that great of a matchup anymore. they're playing pretty darn well. That's who the
Sure.
Cardinals get in week 16. But the Giants and the Saints right now, unless Carr comes back, they are really enticing matchups. That's it for us on FFT Express. Have a good one, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.